begin by simply listening. Slow down. See just how peaceful today can be. Thanks so much for swinging by. You can call me your host, your obedient servant, Sebastian Saint Chica Smalls. You're killing me, Smalls. Vincent twice. You can always call me Bennett. The plan for this one is more Jane Eyre read by the San Diego Library lady, and more Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Thanks again for swinging by. Wish us luck.
Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Christina Wainwright, the branch manager at the Pacific Beach Library here in San Diego, and it's good to see you here at Tea with Jane Eyre. Today we have a lot to discuss. It's a short chapter, so we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about the chapter that we just finished with last week. Before we get started with that, though, it's always nice to have something to enjoy while you're having a discussion. So let's start with our tea. Today's tea is a loose leaf Earl Grey tea. I love Earl Grey tea, and especially I've seen several of you guys are drinking it, and I'm always kind of like, oh, I love that one. Why aren't I drinking Earl Grey today? So today, an Earl Grey loose leaf tea. This one is by Cafe Virtuoso. I've had this before too. I tried this the other day and it was so good. The only thing I had to be careful with is because I don't usually drink caffeinated teas. I drank a whole pot of it and I might have put a little too much tea inside. And so by the end of the afternoon, I was like totally wired and like bouncing around, and it's just like, oh my goodness, it was a lot. But it was so good. I really like the taste of it. Hi Judy, hi Sandy, I see you guys there. Hope you guys are enjoying something delicious also. I do love an Earl Grey tea. It's just always so nice. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where we left off in Jane Eyre. Today we're going to be reading chapter 22, and chapter 21, a lot happened. For those of you you may notice my Masked Monday thing didn't work very well last week. We didn't get a lot of folks posting their photos, so I thought I'd show you this lovely Jane Eyre. She's wearing her mask today. If you would also like to post a photo in the comments of you wearing your mask, or perhaps somebody you know is wearing their mask, that would also be adorable. But yeah, here's Jane with her little mask. I was getting creative during break time, sorry. Okay, so going back to the story though. Things that we learned, things that were truths that were perhaps unmasked in chapter 21, let's say, were that Jane was called back to Gateshead Hall. And it was sort of a departure because we had been kind of progressing along through the story. She'd left Gateshead Hall. You might think that, it was totally in her past, that she'd gone to Lowood and now the next stage was Thornfield, and that that was a chapter of her past that was completely closed. But here it is, we see her again getting called back. And some nice teas I see getting posted. We get called back to Gateshead Hall, and what we find there is that her cousin John Reed has passed away. He's become quite dissolute. He was drinking, he was gambling, he was losing a lot, and he was threatening his mother, and he'd altogether come to a pretty bad end, and he's passed away now. His mother, her health was destroyed by the stress of all this leading up to it, and then when she found out her son had died, she has basically a stroke. And so that's where we find her, is she's called back out to Jane that she wants to have some sort of resolution with her. And what we find out eventually when she gets there and Jane is able to speak with her aunt is that her aunt had hidden from Jane the knowledge that her uncle had come to see her 3 years prior, and he had inquired about Jane Eyre because he had made his fortune and he wanted to bestow it on Jane. And out of spite, her aunt had said, no, Jane Eyre died. She died at Lowood. And actually, she's quite upset that Jane did not have the courtesy to die at Lowood along with everyone else there who did. Aunt Reed, such a terrible person. And so, so Jane finds this letter given to her by her aunt from her uncle, and she reads it, and the aunt basically says, like, go do what you're going to do, admit expose me as the liar that I was, and, you've always been a cross for me to bear. You've always been terrible. And Jane still, with all of this, still says to her aunt, I give you my free forgiveness, and basically admits to her, like, I always just wanted you to like me. I always just wanted you to love me when I was a child. And she offers her hand, she offers her cheek to kiss, and the aunt just turns away from her. And I thought it was beautiful how she said it. The way that Bronte describes it is that basically the aunt had lived her entire life hating Jane and she could not change now. For to admit that Jane had actually not deserved that scorn and that treatment would be for the aunt to have to admit to herself that she had done wrong for all those years by this child. And so, again, it's a painful moment in the book, but it's kind of beautiful too, because Jane, is able to grow beyond the child that she'd been, just that feeling that passionate hatred and resentment, and able to see her aunt in a more charitable light, and to be able to forgive her, and to be able to move forward out of that past pain. And so it's a good moment. It's an important thing for Jane and her growth as a character. Two little things I wanted to bring up, because again, this is a short chapter, so we have a little more time to talk today. The character of John Reed, I always thought on reading of it that he was based on Branwell Bronte, who was the one brother amongst the Bronte children. And we talked about how the two eldest sisters had passed away at the school that was sort of similar to Lowood Institution. Then the three remaining sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, all became published authors. But Branwell was the one brother of the Bronte family, and he was the one who had also been an aspiring writer, who'd been an aspiring poet, who'd been a painter, and all these things, and never really amounted to much. He actually passed away after excessive drinking and opiate abuse in 1848, the year after Jane Eyre was published. And by many accounts, he was similar to John Reed at the end of his life, in the sense that he would go to his father and threaten him that, you need to give me my money, and if you don't, I might hurt you or hurt myself. So again, very similar to what we see with John Reed saying to his mother, Sarah Reed. And so, kind of interesting. I'll post a little link afterwards if you're interested in reading more about the origin of some of the characters. I've been hesitant to post a lot of things because there are spoilers sometimes. So this link that I found, it's to somebody's blog post where they're talking about the early chapters, the characters we meet in the first 4 chapters of the book. And so it includes John Reed and Sarah Reed and the different folks from Gateshead. So I think it's safe at this point because we know those characters and we shouldn't be getting too many spoilers. But if you haven't read the book yet, please resist the urge to go ahead and read the other installments on that blog thing. So I'll post that after our reading today. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, one other thing too, I just want to share because I love language and I think that a lot of you probably do too. I've heard it like a joke before about people, there's some words that you only hear paired in certain ways. For example, you have ruthless, but you never hear Ruth. And I just thought, I noticed it the other day when I was reading that there is actually an instance of Ruth, meaning pity or compassion, again, the opposite of ruthless. And there's a moment when Jane talks about coming home to her aunt and she'd said, I'd left this woman in bitterness and hate, and I came back to her now with no other emotion than a sort of ruth for her great sufferings. I just thought that was kind of fun. You don't get to see that very often. All right, the use of the word ruth instead of ruthless. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with chapter 22 of Jane Eyre on Masked Monday. Let's go ahead and start. Chapter 22. Mr. Rochester had given me but 1 week's leave of absence, yet a month elapsed before I quitted Gateshead. I wished to leave immediately after the funeral, but Georgiana entreated me to stay till she could get off to London, whither she was now at last invited by her uncle, Mr. Gibson, who had come down to direct his sister's interment, and to settle the family affairs. Georgiana said she dreaded being left alone with Eliza. From her, she got neither sympathy in her dejection, support in her fears, nor aid in her preparations. So I bore with her feeble-minded quailings and selfish lamentations as well as I could, and did my best in sewing for her and packing her dresses. It is true that while I worked, she would idle, and I thought to myself, if you and I were destined to live always together, cousin, we would commence matters on a different footing. I should not settle tamely down into being the forbearing party. I should assign you your share of labor and compel you to accomplish it, or else it should be left undone. I should insist also on your keeping some of those drawling, half-insincere complaints hushed in your own breast. It is only because our connection happens to be very transitory and comes at a peculiarly mournful season that I consent thus to render it so patient and compliant on my part. At last, I saw Georgiana off, but now it was Eliza's turn to request me to stay another week. Her plans required all her time and attention, she said. She was about to depart for some unknown bourne, and all day long she stayed in her own room, her door bolted within, filling trunks, emptying drawers, burning papers, and holding no communication with anyone else. She wished me to look after the house, to see callers, and answer notes of condolence. One morning, she told me I was at liberty. And, she added, I am obliged to you for your valuable services and discreet conduct. There is some difference between living with such a one as you and with Georgiana. You perform your own part in life and burden no one. Tomorrow, she continued, I set out for the continent. I shall take up my abode in a religious house near Lille? A nunnery, you would call it. There I shall be quiet and unmolested. I shall devote myself for a time to the examination of the Roman Catholic dogmas and to a careful study of the workings of their system. If I find it to be, as I half suspect it is, the one best calculated to ensure the doing of all things decently and in order, I shall embrace the tenets of Rome and probably take the veil. I neither expressed surprise at this resolution nor attempted to dissuade her from it. The vocation will fit you to a hair, I thought. Much good may it do you. When we parted, she said, Goodbye, Cousin Jane Eyre. I wish you well. You have some sense. I then returned, You are not without sense, Cousin Eliza, but what you have, I suppose, in another year will be walled up alive in a French convent. However, it is not my business, and so it suits you, I don't much care. You are in the right, said she, and with these words, we each went our separate way. As I shall not have occasion to refer either to her or her sister again, I may as well mention here that Georgiana made an advantageous match with a wealthy, worn-out man of fashion, and that Eliza actually took the veil, and is at this day superior of the convent where she passed the period of her novitiate, in which she endowed with her fortune. How people feel when they are returning home after an absence, long or short, I did not know. I had never experienced the sensation. I had known what it was to come back to Gateshead when a child after a long walk, to be scolded for looking cold or gloomy, and later what it was to come back from church to Lowood, to long for a plenteous meal and a good fire, and to be unable to get either. Neither of these returnings were very pleasant or desirable. No magnet drew me to a given point, increasing in its strength of attraction the nearer I came. The return to Thornfield was yet to be tried. My journey seemed tedious, very tedious. 50 miles one day, a night spent at an inn, 50 miles the next day. During the first 12 hours, I thought of Mrs. Reed in her last moments. I saw her disfigured and discolored face and heard her strangely altered voice. I mused on the funeral day, the coffin, the hearse, the black train of tenants and servants. Few was the number of relatives, the gaping vault, the silent church, the solemn service. Then I thought of Eliza and Georgiana. I beheld one, the cynosure of a ballroom, the other, the inmate of a convent cell, and I dwelt on and analyzed their separate peculiarities of person and character. The evening arrival of the great town of scattered these thoughts. Night gave them quite another turn. Laid down on my traveler's bed, I left reminiscence for anticipation. I was going back to Thornfield, but how long was I to stay there? Not long. Of that I was sure. I had heard from Mrs. Fairfax in the interim of my absence. The party at the hall was dispersed. Mr. Rochester had left for London 3 weeks ago, but he was then expected to return in a fortnight. Mrs. Fairfax surmised that he was gone to make arrangements for his wedding, as he had talked of purchasing a new carriage. She said the idea of his marrying Miss Ingram still seemed strange to her, but from what everybody said, and from what she had herself seen, she could no longer doubt that the event would shortly take place. You would be strangely incredulous if you did doubt it, was my mental comment. I don't doubt it. The question followed, where was I to go? I dreamed of Miss Ingram all the night. In a vivid morning dream, I saw her closing the gates of Thornfield against me and pointing me out another road. And Mr. Rochester looked on with his arms folded, smiling sardonically, as it seemed, at both her and me. I had not notified to Mrs. Fairfax the exact day of my return, for I did not wish either car or carriage to meet me at Millcote. I proposed to walk the distance quietly by myself, and very quietly, after leaving my box in the hostler's care, did I slip away from the George Inn about 6 o'clock of a June evening and take the old road to Thornfield, a road which lay chiefly through fields and was now little frequented. It was not a bright or splendid summer evening, though fair and soft. The haymakers were at work all along the road, and the sky, though far from cloudless, was such as promised well for the future. Its blue, where blue was visible, was mild and settled, and its cloud strata high and thin. The west, too, was warm. No watery gleam chilled it. It seemed as if there was a fire lighted, an altar burning behind its screen of marbled vapor, and out of apertures shone a golden redness. I felt glad as the road shortened before me, so glad that I stopped once to ask myself what that joy meant, and to remind reason that it was not to my home I was going, or to a permanent resting place, or to a place where fond friends looked out for me and awaited my arrival. Mrs. Fairfax will smile you a calm welcome, to be sure, said I, and little Adele will clap her hands and jump to see you. But you know very well you are thinking of another than they, and that he is not thinking of you. But what is so headstrong as youth? What so blind as inexperience? Those affirmed that it was pleasure enough to have the privilege of again looking on Mr. Rochester, whether he looked on me or not, and they added, "Hasten, hasten, be with him while you may, but a few more days or weeks at most, and you are parted from him forever." And then I strangled a newborn agony, a deformed thing which I could not persuade myself to own and rear, and ran on. They are making hay, too, in Thornfield Meadows, or rather, the laborers are just quitting their work and returning home with their rakes on their shoulders now at the hour I arrive. I have but a field or two to traverse, and then I shall cross the road and reach the gates. How full the hedges are of roses, but I have no time to gather any. I want to be at the house. I pass the tall briar, shooting leafy and flowery branches across the path. I see the narrow stile with stone steps, and I see Mr. Rochester sitting there, a book and pencil in his hand. He is writing. Well, he is not a ghost, yet every nerve I have is unstrung. For a moment, I am beyond my own mastery. What does it mean? I did not think I should tremble in this way when I saw him, or lose my voice or the power of motion in his presence. I will go back as soon as I can stir. I need not make an absolute fool of myself. I know another way to the house. It does not signify if I knew 20 ways, for he has seen me. "Hello," he cries, and he puts up his book and his pencil. "There you are. Come on, if you please." I suppose I do come on, though in what fashion I know not, being scarcely cognizant of my movements and solicitous only to appear calm, and above all to control the working muscles of my face, which I feel rebel insolently against my will, and struggle to express what I had resolved to conceal. But I have a veil, it is down. I may make shift yet to behave with decent composure. "And this is Jane Eyre. Are you coming from Millcote, and on foot?" "Why, yes, just one of your tricks. Not to send for a carriage and come clattering over street and road like a common mortal, but to steal into the vicinage of your home along with twilight, just as if you were a dream or a shade. What the deuce have you done with yourself this last month?" "I have been with my aunt, sir, who is dead." "True," Janian replied. "Good angels be my guard. She comes from the other world, from the abode of people who are dead, and tells me so when she meets me alone here in the gloaming. If I dared, I'd touch you, to see if you are substance or shadow, you elf. But I'd as soon offer to take hold of a blue ignis fatuus light in a marsh. Truant, truant," he added, when he had paused an instant. "Absent from me a whole month, and forgetting me quite, I'll be sworn." I knew there would be pleasure in meeting my master again, even though broken by the fear that he was so soon to cease to be my master, and by the knowledge that I was nothing to him. But there was ever in Mr. Rochester, so at least I thought, such a wealth of the power of communicating happiness, that to taste but of the crumbs he scattered to stray and stranger birds like me was to feast genially. His last words were balm. They seemed to imply that it imported something to him whether I forgot him or not. And he had spoken of Thornfield as my home. Would that it were my home. He did not leave the stile, and I hardly liked to ask to go by. I inquired soon if he had not been to London. "Yes, I suppose you found that out by a second sight?" "Mrs. Fairfax told me in a letter." "And did she inform you what I went to do?" "Oh, yes, sir. Everybody knew your errand." "You must see the carriage, Jane. and tell me if you don't think it will suit Mrs. Rochester exactly, and whether she won't look like Queen Boadicea, leaning back against those purple cushions. I wish, Jane, I were a trifle better adapted to match with her externally. Tell me now, fairy as you are, can't you give me a charm or a filter or something of that sort to make me a handsome man? It would be past the power of magic, sir. And in thought, I added, a loving eye is all the charm needed. To such you are handsome enough, or rather your sternness has a power beyond beauty. Mr. Rochester had sometimes read my unspoken thoughts with an acumen to me incomprehensible. In the present instance, he took no notice of my abrupt vocal response, but he smiled at me with a certain smile he had of his own, in which he used but on rare occasions. He seemed to think it too good for common purposes. It was the real sunshine of feeling. He shed it over me now. "Pass, Janet," said he, making room for me to cross the stile. "Go up home and stay your weary little wandering feet at a friend's threshold." All I had now to do was to obey him in silence. No need for me to colloquize further. I got over the stile without a word and meant to leave him calmly. An impulse held me fast. A force turned me round. I said, or something in me said for me, and in spite of me, "Thank you, Mr. Rochester, for your great kindness. I am strangely glad to get back again to you, and wherever you are is my home, my only home." I walked on so fast that even he could hardly have overtaken me had he tried. Little Adele was half wild with delight when she saw me. Mrs. Fairfax received me with her usual plain friendliness. Leah smiled, and even Sophie bid me bonsoir, good evening, with glee. This was very pleasant. There is no happiness like that of being loved by our fellow creatures and feeling like your presence is an addition to their comfort. I that evening shut my eyes resolutely against the future. I stopped my ears against the voice that kept warning me of near separation and coming grief. When tea was over, and Mrs. Fairfax had taken her knitting, and I had assumed a low seat near her, and Adele, kneeling on the carpet, had nestled close up to me, and a sense of mutual affection seemed to surround us with a ring of golden peace, I uttered a silent prayer that we might not be parted far or soon. But when, as we thus sat, Mr. Rochester entered, unannounced, and looking at us, seemed to take pleasure in the spectacle of a group so amicable. When he said he supposed the old lady was all right now that she had got her adopted daughter back again, and added that he saw Adele was prête à croquer sa petite maman anglaise, ready to devour her little English mamma, I half ventured to hope that he would, even after his marriage, keep us together somewhere under the shelter of his protection, and not quite exiled from the sunshine of his presence. A fortnight of dubious calm succeeded my return to Thornfield Hall. Nothing was said of the master's marriage, and I saw no preparation going on for such an event. Almost every day I asked Mrs. Fairfax if she had yet heard anything decided. Her answer was always in the negative. Once she said she had actually put the question to Mr. Rochester as to when he was going to bring his bride home, but he had answered her only by a joke and one of his queer looks, and she could not tell what to make of him. One thing specially surprised me, and that was there were no journeyings backward and forward, no visits to Ingram Park. To be sure, it was 20 miles off, on the borders of another county, but what was that distance to an ardent lover? To so practiced and indefatigable a horseman as Mr. Rochester, it would be but a morning's ride. I began to cherish hopes I had no right to conceive, that the match was broken off, the rumor had been mistaken, that one or both parties had changed their minds. I used to look at my master's face to see if it were sad or fierce, but I could not remember the time when it had been so uniformly clear of clouds or evil feelings. If, in the moments I and my pupil spent with him, I lacked spirits and sunk into inevitable dejection, he became even gay. Never had he called me more frequently to his presence, never been kinder to me when there, and alas, never had I loved him so well. Poor Jane. Okay, that concludes chapter 22 of Jane Eyre. Tomorrow is another short chapter. It's a good one. I'll see you then. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining me for tea with Jane Eyre. Bye. Yep. Hi guys. It's Christina Wainwright from the PB Library, and this is a weird thing. Sorry, I'm setting up the phone right now because I actually just did the full half-hour reading of chapter 23, and I drank my tea. It's delicious. I still have some, but and then at the very end, I saw that there was a note saying that it didn't go through. All right, my coworker is confirming that this time he's actually watching, and he says it's working. So I'm so sorry for anyone who came in at 3 o'clock and it wasn't showing. I really did do the reading. It just didn't record. Okay, so let's go over the whole thing again. I'll do it faster this time, perhaps, or when I get to reading, I'll do the real pace. But I was just going to say, I love chapter 23. It's a great chapter. We've been waiting a long time for it. And I'm so sorry that it got delayed today for anyone else who was really excited and who knew it was coming. Okay, so technical difficulties. At the end, I was trying to finish it, and it wouldn't let me finish it. And it turned out it was because the video had never started, even though it said live. So again, really, really sorry. Today's tea is a bourbon vanilla tea. It's a rooibos-based tea, so it's rooibos with calendula petals, almond slices, vanilla. It is delightful. It smells really great. I added some sugar to it when I poured out. It has a lovely color to it. But yeah, it's a beautiful tea. I see Judy saying that she couldn't get the video today. Can you guys see now? Is it working okay? I hope so. Okay, I see Jan there. Jan, can you just tell me if you guys can actually see and hear? Because I feel so bad that I read that in whole chapter and no one got to see it. But maybe I'll read it more dramatically this time. I'll try not to make so many mistakes. Yes, thank you, Jan. Thank you for confirming you can see it. So I was going to say too, so this is actually one of my favorite chapters. It has one of my favorite scenes in the book. I'm so sorry it didn't work out. It's okay. This is great. I love it so much I get to read it twice. There you go. That's the way to look at it. And actually, going along with that too, I'm wearing an infinity scarf today that actually has a passage from Jane Eyre. And what I'll do, what I did last time too, is when I start the chapter, or when I start the passage, I'll gesture to my scarf. And when I finish it, I'll gesture to my scarf. But there's a passage from the book that's here on my scarf today. I just feel all discombobulated. Okay. Let's get past that, because it's a great chapter. Where we left off last time was that Jane Eyre had returned from Gateshead Hall, where her aunt Reed had passed away, and she'd helped get her two cousins, Georgiana and Eliza, settled into this new chapter of their lives. When she got back to Thornfield Hall, it was her first time ever feeling like she was coming home to a place where she belonged and that she loved, and that she felt appreciated as a person. And so she has this moment where she's coming home and she meets Mr. Rochester out in the fields, and they have a conversation, and she feels so welcomed, but at the same time she knows that she won't be there that long, because once he marries Blanche Ingram, she will have to leave.
Is now ready.
And so she is she's at a place in her life where she is both loving and cherishing being back home at Thornfield, but it's bittersweet because she knows she's going to have to leave because he's going to be marrying Blanche Ingram, and she can't stay there for that. It's just going to be too hard for her to see. And so let's go ahead and get started in chapter 23. And again, for anyone who did try to tune in at 3, I am so sorry about the mishap. But thank you for coming back. And if you're watching this later on, don't worry about it. You're watching it later on anyway. Okay, so let's get started with chapter 23, because I am actually happy to read it again. Let's go. Chapter 23 of Jane Eyre. A splendid midsummer shone over England. Skies so pure, suns so radiant as were then seen in long succession, seldom favor, even singly, our wave-girt land. It was as if a band of Italian days had come from the south, like a flock of glorious passenger birds, and lighted to rest them on the cliffs of Albion. The hay was all got in. The fields round Thornfield were green and shorn, the roads white and baked. The trees were in their dark prime. Hedge and wood, full-leaved and deeply tinted, contrasted well with the sunny hue of the cleared meadows between. On Midsummer Eve, Adele, weary with gathering wild strawberries in Hay Lane half the day, had gone to bed with the sun. I watched her drop asleep, and when I left her, I sought the garden. It was now the sweetest hour of the 24. Day its fervid fires had wasted, and dew fell cool on panting plain and scorched summit. Where the sun had gone down in simple state, pure of the pomp of clouds, spread a solemn purple, burning with the light of red jewel and furnace flame at one point, on one hill peak, and extending high and wide, soft, and still softer, over half heaven. The east had its own charm of fine deep blue, and its own modest gem, a rising and solitary star, Soon it would boast the moon, but she was yet beneath the horizon. I walked a while on the pavement, but a subtle, well-known scent, that of a cigar, stole from some window. I saw the library casement open a handbreadth. I knew I might be watched thence, so I went apart into the orchard. No nook in the grounds was sheltered and more Eden-like. It was full of trees. It bloomed with flowers. A very high wall shut it out from the court on one side. On the other, a beech avenue screened it from the lawn. At the bottom was a sunk fence, its sole separation from lonely fields. A winding walk, bordered with laurels and terminating in a giant horse chestnut, circled at the base by a seat, led down to the fence. Here one could wander unseen. While such honeydew fell, such silence reigned, such gloaming gathered, I felt as if I could haunt such shade forever. But in threading the flower and fruit parterres of the upper part of the enclosure, enticed there by the light the now rising moon cast on this more open quarter, my step is stayed, not by sound nor by sight, but once more by morning fragrance. Sweet briar and southern wood, jasmine, pink, and rose have long been yielding their evening sacrifice of incense. This new scent is neither of shrub nor flower. It is, I know it well, it is Mr. Rochester's cigar. I look round and I listen. I see trees laden with ripening fruit. I hear a nightingale warbling in a wood half a mile off. No moving form is visible, no coming step audible, but that perfume increases. I must flee. I make for the wicket leading to the shrubbery, and I see Mr. Rochester entering. I step aside into the ivy recess. He will not stay long. He will soon return whence he came, and if I sit here, he will never see me. But no, eventide is as pleasant to him as to me, and this antique garden is attractive. And he strolls on, now lifting the gooseberry tree branches to look at the fruit, large as plums with which they are laden, now taking a ripe cherry from the wall, now stooping toward a knot of flowers, either to inhale their fragrance or to admire the dew beads on their petals. A great moth goes humming by me. It alights on a plant at Mr. Rochester's feet. He sees it and bends to examine it. Now he has his back toward me, thought I, and he is occupied too. Perhaps if I walk softly, I can slip away unnoticed. I trod on an edging of turf that the crackle of the pebbly gravel might not betray me. He was standing among the beds at a yard or two distant from where I had to pass. The moth apparently engaged him. I shall get by very well, I meditated. As I crossed his shadow, thrown long over the garden by the moon, not yet risen high, he said quietly, without turning, "Jane, come and look at this fellow." I had made no noise. He had not eyes behind. Could his shadow feel? I started at first, and then I approached him. "Look at his wings," said he. "He reminds me rather of a West Indian insect. One does not often see so large and gay a night rover in England. There, he is flown." The moth roamed away. I was sheepishly retreating also, but Mr. Rochester followed me, and when we reached the wicket, he said, "Turn back. On so lovely a night, it is a shame to sit in the house, and surely no one can wish to go to bed while sunset is thus at meeting with moonrise." It is one of my faults that though my tongue is sometimes prompt enough to answer, there are times when it sadly fails me in framing an excuse, and always the lapse occurs at some crisis, when a facile word or plausible pretext is specially wanted to get me out of painful embarrassment. I did not like to walk at this hour alone with Mr. Rochester in the shadowy orchard, but I could not find a reason to allege for leaving him. I followed with lagging step, and thoughts busily bent on discovering a means of extrication. But he himself looked so composed and so grave also, I became ashamed of feeling any confusion. The evil, if evil existent or perspective there was, seemed to lie with me only. His mind was unconscious and quiet. "Jane," he recommenced, as we entered the laurel walk and slowly strayed down in the direction of the sunk fence and the horse chestnut. "Thornfield is a pleasant place in summer, is it not?" "Yes, sir." "You must have become in some degree attached to the house. You who have an eye for natural beauties and a good deal of the organ of adhesiveness." "I am attached to it indeed." "And though I don't comprehend how it is, I perceive you have acquired a degree of regard for that foolish little child Adele, too, And even for simple Dame Fairfax? Yes, sir. In different ways, I have an affection for both. And would be sorry to part with them? Yes. Pity, he said, and sighed and paused. It is always the way of events in this life, he continued presently. No sooner have you got settled in a pleasant resting place than a voice calls out to you to rise and move on, for the hour of repose is expired. Must I move on, sir, I asked. Must I leave Thornfield? I believe you must, Jane. I am sorry, Janet, but I believe, indeed, you must. This was a blow, but I did not let it prostrate me. Well, sir, I shall be ready when the order to march comes. It is come now. I must give it tonight. Then you are going to be married, sir? Exactly. Precisely. With your usual acuteness, you have hit the nail straight on the head. Soon, sir? Very soon, that is, Miss Eyre. And you'll remember, Jane, the first time I, or rumor, plainly intimated to you that it was my intention to put my old bachelor's neck into the sacred noose, to enter into the holy estate of matrimony, to take Miss Ingram to my bosom, in short. She's an extensive armful, but that's not the point. One can't have too much of such a very excellent thing as my beautiful Blanche. Well, as I was saying, listen to me, Jane. You're not turning your head to look after more moths, are you? That was only a lady clock, child, flying away home. I wish to remind you that it was you who first said to me, with that discretion I respect in you, with that foresight, prudence, and humility which befit your responsible and dependent position, that in case I married Miss Ingram, both you and little Adele had better trot forthwith. I pass over the sort of slur conveyed in the suggestion on the character of my beloved. Indeed, when you are far gone, Janet, I'll try to forget it. I shall notice only its wisdom, which is such that I've made it my law of action. Adele must go to school, and you, Miss Eyre, must get a new situation. Yes, sir. I will advertise immediately. And meantime, I suppose I suppose I may stay here till I find another shelter to betake myself to. But I stopped, feeling it would not do to risk a long sentence, for my voice was not quite under command. In about a month I hope to be a bridegroom, continued Mr. Rochester, and in the interim I shall myself look out for employment and an asylum for you. Thank you, sir. I am sorry to give... Oh, no need to apologize. I consider that when a dependent does her duty as well as you have done yours, she has a sort of claim upon her employer for any little assistance he can conveniently render her. Indeed, I have already, through my future mother-in-law, heard of a place that I think will suit. It is to undertake the education of the 5 daughters of Mrs. Dionysus O'Gall of Bitternut Lodge, Connaught, Ireland. You'll like Ireland, I think. They're such warm-hearted people there, they say. It's a long way off, sir. No matter. A girl of your sense will not object to the voyage or the distance. Not the voyage, but the distance. And then the sea is a barrier. From what, Jane? From England, and from Thornfield, and... Well? From you, sir. I said this almost involuntarily, and with as little sanction of free will, my tears gushed out. I did not cry so as to be heard, however. I avoided sobbing. The thought of Mrs. O'Gall and Bitternut Lodge struck cold to my heart, and colder the thought of all the brine and foam, destined as it seemed to rush between me and the master at whose side I now walked, and coldest at the remembrance of the wider ocean. Wealth, caste, custom, intervened between me and what I naturally and inevitably loved. It is a long way, I again said. It is, to be sure, and when you get to Bitternut Lodge, Connaught, Ireland, I shall never see you again, Jane. That's morally certain. I never go over to Ireland, not having myself much of a fancy for the country. We have been good friends, Jane, have we not? Yes, sir. And when friends are on the eve of separation, they like to spend the little time that remains to them close to each other. Come, we'll talk over the voyage and the parting quietly, half an hour or so, while the stars enter into their shining life up in heaven yonder. Here is the chestnut tree. Here is the bench at its old roots. Come, we will sit there in peace tonight, though we should never more be destined to sit there together. He seated me and himself. It is a long way to Ireland, Janet, and I am sorry to send my little friend on such weary travels. But if I can't do better, how is it to be helped? Are you anything akin to me, do you think, Jane? I could risk no sort of answer by this time. My heart was full. Because, he said, I sometimes have a queer feeling with regard to you, especially when you are near me, as now. It is as if I had a string somewhere under my left ribs, tightly and inextricably knotted to a similar string situated in the corresponding quarter of your little frame. And if that boisterous channel and 200 miles or so of land come broad between us, I am afraid that cord of communion will be snapped, and then I've a nervous notion I should take to bleeding inwardly. As for you, you'd forget me. That I never should, sir. You know. Impossible to proceed. Jane, do you hear that nightingale singing in the wood? Listen. In listening, I sobbed convulsively, for I could repress what I endured no longer. I was obliged to yield, and I was shaken from head to foot with acute distress. When I did speak, it was only to express an impetuous wish that I had never been born or never come to Thornfield. Because you were sorry to leave it? The vehemence of emotion stirred by grief and love within me was claiming mastery and struggling for full sway and asserting a right to predominate, to overcome, to live, rise, and reign at last. Yes, and to speak. I grieve to leave Thornfield. I love Thornfield. I love it because I have lived in it a full and delightful life, momentarily at least. I have not been trampled on. I have not been petrified. I have not been buried with inferior minds and excluded from every glimpse of communion with what is bright and energetic and high. I have talked face to face with what I reverence, with what I delight in, with an original, a vigorous, and expanded mind. I have known you, Mr. Rochester, and it strikes me with terror and anguish to feel I absolutely must be torn from you forever. I see the necessity of departure, and it is like looking on the necessity of death. Where do you see the necessity? He asked suddenly. Where? You, sir, have placed it before me. In what shape? In the shape of Miss Ingram, a noble and beautiful woman, your bride. My bride? What bride? I have no bride. But you will have. Yes, I will. I will. He set his teeth. Then I must go. You have said it yourself. No, you must stay. I swear it, and the oath shall be kept. I tell you I must go, I retorted, roused to something like passion. Do you think I can stay to become nothing to you? Do you think I am an automaton, a machine without feelings, and can bear to have my morsel of bread snatched from my lips and my drop of living water dashed from my cup? Do you think because I'm poor, obscure, plain, and little, I am soulless and heartless? You think wrong. I have as much soul as you, and full as much heart. And if God had gifted me with some beauty and much wealth, I should have made it as hard for you to leave me as it is now for me to leave you. I am not talking to you now through the medium of custom, conventionalities, nor even of mortal flesh. It is my spirit that addresses your spirit, just as if both had passed through the grave and we stood at God's feet, equal, as we are. As we are, repeated Mr. Rochester. So, he added, enclosing me in his arms, gathering me to his breast, pressing his lips to my lips. So, Jane. Yes, so, sir, I rejoined, and yet not so, for you are a married man, or as good as a married man, and wed to one inferior to you, to one with whom you have no sympathy, whom I do not believe you truly love, for I have seen and heard you sneer at her. I would scorn such a union. Therefore, I am better than you. Let me go. Where, Jane? To Ireland? Yes, to Ireland. I have spoken my mind and could go anywhere now. Jane, be still. Don't struggle so like a wild, frantic bird that is rending its own plumage in its desperation. I am no bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will, which I now exert to leave you. Another effort set me at liberty, and I stood erect before him. And your will shall decide your destiny, he said. I offer you my hand, my heart, and a share of all my possessions. You play a farce which I merely laugh at. I ask you to pass through life at my side, to be my second self and best earthly companion. For that fate you have already made your choice and must abide by it. Jane, be still. Be still a few moments. You are overexcited. I will be still too. A waft of wind came sweeping down the laurel walk and trembled through the boughs of the chestnut. It wandered away, away, to an indefinite distance. It died. The nightingale's song was then the only voice of the hour. In listening to it, I again wept. Mr. Rochester sat quiet, looking at me gently and seriously. Some time passed before he had spoke. He at last said, "Come to my side, Jane, and let us explain and understand one another." "I will never again come to your side. I am torn away now and cannot return." "But Jane, I summon you as my wife. It is you only I intend to marry." I was silent. I thought he mocked me. "Come, Jane, come hither. Your bride stands between us." He rose and with a stride reached me. "My bride is here," he said, again drawing me to him, "because my equal is here and my likeness. Jane, will you marry me?" Still I did not answer, and still I writhed myself from his grasp, for I was still incredulous. "Do you doubt me, Jane?" "Entirely." "You have no faith in me?" "Not a whit." "Am I a liar in your eyes?" he asked passionately. "Little skeptic, you shall be convinced. What love have I for Miss Ingram? None, and that you know. What love has she for me? None, as I have taken pains to prove. I caused a rumor to reach her that my fortune was not a third of what was supposed, and after that I presented myself to see the result. It was coldness, both from her and her mother. I could not marry Miss Ingram. You strange, you almost unearthly thing, I love as my own flesh. You, poor and obscure and small and plain as you are, I entreat you to accept me as your husband." "What, me?" I ejaculated, beginning in his earnestness, and especially in his incivility, to credit his sincerity. "Me, who have not a friend in the world but you, if you are my friend. Not a shilling but what you have given me." "Jane, I must have you for my own, entirely my own. Will you be mine? Say yes quickly." "Mr. Rochester, let me look at your face. Turn to the moonlight." "Why?" "Because I want to read your countenance. Turn." "There, you will find it scarcely more legible than a crumpled, scratched page. Read on, only make haste, for I suffer." His face was very much agitated and very much flushed, and there were strong workings in the features and strange gleams in the eyes. "Oh, Jane, you torture me," he exclaimed. "With that searching and yet faithful and generous look, you torture me." "How can I do that? If you are true and your offer real, my only feelings to you must be gratitude and devotion. They cannot torture." "Gratitude," he ejaculated, and added wildly, "Jane, accept me quickly. Say, Edward, give me my name. Edward, I will marry you." "Are you in earnest? Do you truly love me? Do you sincerely wish me to be your wife?" "I do, and if an oath is necessary to satisfy you, I swear it." "Then, sir, I will marry you." "Edward, my little wife." "Dear Edward." Come to me entirely now," said he, and added in his deepest tones, speaking in my ear as his cheek was laid on mine, "Make my happiness, I will make yours." "God pardon me," he subjoined ere long, "and man meddle not with me. I have her, and will hold her." "There is no one to meddle, sir. I have no kindred to interfere." "No, that is the best of it," he said. And if I had loved him less, I should have thought his accent and look of exultation savage. But sitting by him, roused from the nightmare of parting, called to the paradise of union, I thought only of the bliss given me to drink in so abundant a flow. Again and again he said, "Are you happy, Jane?" And again I answered, "Yes." After which he murmured, "It will atone, it will atone. Have I not found her friendless and cold and comfortless? Will I not guard and cherish and solace her? Is there not love in my heart and constancy in my resolves? It will expiate at God's tribunal. I know my Maker sanctions what I do. For the world's judgment, I wash my hands thereof. For man's opinion, I defy it. But what had befallen the night? The moon was not yet set, and we were all in shadow. I could scarcely see my master's face, near as I was. And what ailed the chestnut tree? It writhed and groaned, while wind roared in the laurel walk and came sweeping over us. "We must go in," said Mr. Rochester. "The weather changes." I could have sat with thee till morning, Jane. And so, thought I, could I with you. I should have said so, perhaps, but a vivid spark leapt out of a cloud at which I was looking, and there was a crash, a crack, and a close rattling peal, and I thought only of hiding my dazzled eyes against Mr. Rochester's shoulder. The rain rushed down. He hurried me up the walk through the grounds and into the house, but we were quite wet before we could pass the threshold. He was taking off my shawl in the hall and shaking the water out of my loosened hair when Mrs. Fairfax emerged from her room. I did not observe her at first, nor did Mr. Rochester. The lamp was lighted. The clock was on the stroke of 12. "Hasten to take off your wet things," said he, "and before you go, good night, my darling." He kissed me repeatedly. When I looked up on leaving his arms, there stood the widow, pale, grave, and amazed. I only smiled at her and ran upstairs. Explanation will do for another time, thought I. Still, when I reached my chamber, I felt a pang at the idea she should even temporarily misconstrue what she had seen. But joy soon effaced every other feeling, and loud as the wind blew, near and deep as the thunder crashed, fierce and frequent as the lightning gleamed, cataract-like as the rain fell during a storm of 2 hours' duration, I experienced no fear and little awe. Mr. Rochester came thrice to my door in the course of it to ask if I was safe and tranquil, and that was comfort, that was strength for anything. Before I left my bed in the morning, little Adele came running in to tell me that the great horse chestnut at the bottom of the orchard had been struck by lightning in the night, and half of it split away. And that concludes chapter 23 of Jane Eyre. As I mentioned, it is an exciting chapter. We find out that Mr. Rochester returns Jane's feelings, wants to marry her, and they're going to get married. It's so sweet. However, what I think is actually the cooler part of that chapter is Jane finally stands up for herself, and she declares to herself to be, even though she knows that the world might see her as poor, as plain, as small, or whatever, that she is not just Mr. Rochester's equal, but even his better. It's a nice moment. It's a very powerful moment for her, and I love it so much. And yeah, that's why it's my favorite passage, and why it's on the scarf, and I think it's a big part of why this book is one of the classic that's lasted for as long as it has. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Thank you, too, for those of you who tried to watch at 3 o'clock, and I didn't realize I was having technical difficulties, so thank you for coming back in and watching the later version of this. I hope you're having a wonderful tea. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and come back tomorrow because this is just getting even better. Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care now. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Christina Wainwright, manager at the Pacific Beach branch of the San Diego Public Library, and I'm happy for you to join me today with Tea with Jane Eyre. We had technical difficulties yesterday, so I'm hoping people are there. Oh, I should have... I don't see anyone saying that they're here. Hang on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I see somebody liking that they're here, so this means it's working. Okay, good. Sorry about that. I just had to be sure this time because yesterday was so traumatic. Okay, yes, I got the thumbs up also. Alrighty, so yesterday's chapter was super exciting. So in chapter 23, Jane and Mr. Rochester both realized that they did have feelings for each other. Mr. Rochester asked Jane to marry him, and even though she was thinking that he was just teasing at first because she was sure that he was going to marry Blanche Ingram, she realized that he was telling the truth, that he was sincere about wanting to marry her, and finally she said yes. Okay, that was super exciting. And thank you, Angela. So after that, it was a beautiful, blissful night. But of course, being Jane Eyre, I mean, the novel, not just being her person, the novel of Jane Eyre, there always has to be something dark and a little mysterious happening on the background too. So at the end of that chapter, there was a storm that suddenly came up, and the tree that they had their amazing declaration of love next to was shattered by a big bolt of lightning, and it destroyed the tree. So, da da da, excitement. Even when there's true love and happiness, something crazy has to happen in Jane Eyre. So, that was chapter 23. We're ready to start chapter 24. I think we could use some good fortification for this one. And so, oh, I should warn you too. In this chapter, I peeked ahead. There is singing, and it is singing in the male voice. So I'm going to try to do not too terrible a job trying to do my deeper man voice, and also trying to do a song for you. So again, apologies in advance for that one. In preparation for that, I deserve good tea. So today, our tea is an afternoon Darjeeling. It says it's a black tea from Margaret's Hope Estate. And actually, I like how they described the ingredients, so I'm going to describe that too. They said the ingredients are not just black tea. It is an orthodox, autumnal, second flush black tea, elegant and mild. And then in quotes it says, the champagne of tea. So today we're going to have the champagne of tea. Not drinking real booze on the job, just afternoon Darjeeling, just so we're clear. So our tea, it had a really beautiful scent, by the way, when I opened up the little bag of the loose leaf tea. So I'm just going to pour a little bit, or I'm going to pour the whole thing out, have a quick sip of it on its own, then we'll add in some sugar and cream, because for this one, I think we should go the whole experience of the sugar and cream too. Oh, it smells so good. I don't know if I'd say champagne of tea. That is some awfully fine tea. Okay, so we're just going to add in a bit of sugar. We all know I like my tea sweet. And I didn't have a proper creamer, to pour it out of, I mean. And so I just brought a little tiny Tupperware of half and half from home. There we go. Let's get that all stirred in. I gotta say, I think one of the fun parts about making tea is the stirring and all that good stuff too. It's just a little bit of ceremony that makes it feel really nice. It just sort of adds a little calming moment to your day when you make your tea. Oh, that's really good. And I am giddy with happiness, so maybe it is the champagne of teas. All right, let's go into chapter 24 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Okay, chapter 24. As I rose and dressed, I thought over what had happened and wondered if it were a dream. I could not be certain of the reality till I had seen Mr. Rochester again and heard him renew his words of love and promise. While arranging my hair, I looked at my face in the glass and felt it was no longer plain. There was hope in its aspect and life in its color, and my eyes seemed as if they had beheld the fount of fruition and borrowed beams from the lustrous ripple. I had often been unwilling to look at my master because I feared he could not be pleased at my look, but I was sure I might lift my face to his now and not cool his affection by its expression. I took a plain but clean and light summer dress from my drawer and put it on. It seemed no attire had ever so well become me, because none had I ever worn in so blissful a mood. I was not surprised when I ran down into the hall to see that a brilliant June morning had succeeded to the tempest of the night, and to feel, through the open glass door, the breathing of a fresh and fragrant breeze. Nature must be gladsome when I was so happy. A beggar woman and her little boy, pale, ragged objects both, were coming up the walk, and I ran down and gave them all the money I happened to have in my purse, some 3 or 4 shillings. Good or bad, they must partake of my jubilee. The rooks cawed and blitherbirds sung, but nothing was so merry or so musical as my own rejoicing heart. Mrs. Fairfax surprised me by looking out of the window with a sad countenance and saying gravely, "Miss Eyre, will you come to breakfast?" During the meal she was quiet and cool, but I could not undeceive her then. I must wait for my master to give explanations, and so must she. I ate what I could, and then I hastened upstairs. I met Adele leaving the schoolroom. "Where are you going? It is time for lessons." "Mr. Rochester has sent me away to the nursery." "Where is he?" "In there," pointing to the apartment she had left, and I went in, and there he stood. "Come and bid me good morning," said he. I gladly advanced, and it was not merely a cold word now, or even a shake of the hand that I received, but an embrace and a kiss. It seemed natural. It seemed genial to be so well loved, so caressed by him. "Jane, you look blooming and smiling and pretty," said he. "Truly pretty this morning. Is this my pale little elf? Is this my mustard seed? This little sunny-faced girl with the dimpled cheek and rosy lips, the satin-smooth hazel hair and the radiant hazel eyes?" I had green eyes, reader, but you must excuse the mistake. For him, they were new-dyed, I suppose. "It is Jane Eyre, sir." "Soon to be Jane Rochester," he added. "In 4 weeks, Janet, not a day more. Do you hear that?" I did, and I could not quite comprehend it. It made me giddy. The feeling the announcement sent through me was something stronger than was consistent with joy, something that smote and stunned. It was, I think, almost fear. "You blushed, and now you are white, Jane. What is that for?" "Because you gave me a new name, Jane Rochester, and it seems so strange." "Yes, Mrs. Rochester," said he. "Young Mrs. Rochester, Fairfax Rochester's girl bride." "It can never be, sir. It does not sound likely. Human beings never enjoy complete happiness in this world. I was not born for a different destiny to the rest of my species. To imagine such a lot befalling me is a fairy tale, a daydream." "Which I can and will realize. I shall begin today. This morning I wrote to my banker in London to send me certain jewels he has in his keeping, heirlooms for the ladies of Thornfield. In a day or two I hope to pour them into your lap, for every privilege, every attention shall be yours that I would accord to a peer's daughter if about to marry her." "Oh, sir, never mind jewels. I don't like to hear them spoken of. Jewels for Jane Eyre sounds unnatural and strange. I would rather not have them." "I will myself put the diamond chain round your neck and the circlet on your forehead, which it will become. For nature at least has stamped her patent of nobility on this brow, Jane, and I will clasp the bracelets on these fine wrists and load these fairy-like fingers with rings." "No, no, sir. Think of other subjects and speak of other things, and in another strain. Don't address me as if I were a beauty. I am your plain Quakerish governess." "You are a beauty in my eyes, and a beauty just after the desire of my own heart, delicate and aerial." "Puny and insignificant, you mean. You are dreaming, sir, or you are sneering. For God's sake, don't be ironical." "I will make the world acknowledge you a beauty too," he went on, while I really became uneasy at the strain he had adopted, because I felt he was either deluding himself or trying to delude me. "I will attire my Jane in satin and lace, and she shall have roses in her hair, and I will cover the head I love best with a priceless veil." "And then you won't know me, sir, and I shall not be your Jane Eyre any longer, but an ape in a harlequin's jacket, a jay in borrowed plumes. I would as soon see you, Mr. Rochester, tricked out in stage trappings, as myself clad in a court lady's robe. And I don't call you handsome, sir, though I love you most dearly, far too dearly to flatter you. Don't flatter me." He pursued his theme, however, without noticing my deprecation. "This very day I shall take you in the carriage to Millcote, and you must choose some dresses for yourself. I told you we should be married in 4 weeks. The wedding is to take place quietly, in the church down below yonder, and then I shall waft you away at once to town. After a brief stay there, I shall bear my treasure to regions nearer the sun, to French vineyards and Italian plains, and she shall see whatever is famous in old story and in modern record. She shall taste, too, of the life of cities, and she shall learn to value herself by just comparison with others." "Shall I travel? And with you, sir?" "You shall sojourn at Paris, Rome, and Naples, at Florence, Venice, and Vienna. All the ground I have wandered over shall be retrodden by you. Where I stamped my hoof, your sylph's-foot shall step also. 10 years since I flew through Europe, half mad, with disgust, hate, and rage as my companions. Now I shall revisit it, healed and cleansed, with the very angel as my comforter." I laughed at him as he said this. "I am not an angel," I asserted, "and I will not be one till I die. I will be myself, Mr. Rochester. You must neither expect nor exact anything celestial of me, for you will not get it any more than I shall get it of you, which I do not at all anticipate." "What do you anticipate of me?" Well, for a little while you will perhaps be as you are now, a very little while, and then you will turn cool, and then you will be capricious, and then you will be stern, and I shall have much ado to please you. But when you get well used to me, you will perhaps like me again. Like me, I say, not love me. I suppose your love will effervesce in 6 months or less. I have observed in books written by men that period assigned is the farthest to which a husband's ardor extends. Yet, after all, as a friend and companion, I hope never to become quite distasteful to my dear master. Distasteful? And like you again? I think I shall like you again and yet again. And I will make you confess I do not only like, but love you, with truth, fervor, constancy. Yet, are you not capricious, sir? To women who please me only by their faces, I am the very devil when I found out they have neither souls nor hearts. When they open to me a perspective of flatness, triviality, and perhaps imbecility, coarseness, and ill temper. But to the clear eye and eloquent tongue, to the soul made of fire and the character that bends but does not break, at once subtle and stable, tractable and consistent, I am ever tender and true. Have you ever experienced of such a character, sir? Did you ever love such a one? I love it now. But before me, if I indeed in any respect come up to that difficult standard, I never met your likeness, Jane. You please me, and you master me. You seem to submit, and I like the sense of pliancy you impart. And while I am twining the soft, silken skein round my finger, it sends a thrill up my arm to my heart. I am influenced, conquered, and the influence is sweeter than I can express, and the conquest I undergo has a witchery beyond any triumph I can win. Why do you smile, Jane? What does that inexplicable, that uncanny turn of countenance mean? I was thinking, sir, you will excuse the idea, it was involuntary. I was thinking of Hercules and Samson with their charmers. You were, you little elfish. Hush, sir, you don't talk very wisely just now, any more than those gentlemen acted very wisely. However, had they been married, they would, no doubt, by their severity as husbands, have made up for their softness as suitors. And so will you, I fear. I wonder how you will answer me a year hence, should I ask a favor it does not suit your convenience or pleasure to grant. Ask me something now, Janet. The least thing. I desire to be entreated. Indeed, I will, sir. I have my petition already. Speak. But if you look up and smile with that countenance, I shall swear a concession before I know to what, and that will make a fool of me. Not at all, sir. I ask only this. Don't send for the jewels, and don't crown me with roses. You might as well put a border of gold lace round that plain pocket handkerchief you have there. I might as well gild refined gold. I know it. Your request is granted then, for the time. I will remand the order I dispatched to my banker. But you have not yet asked for anything. You have prayed a gift to be withdrawn. Try again. Well then, sir, have the goodness to gratify my curiosity, which is much piqued on one point. He looked disturbed. What? He said hastily. Curiosity is a dangerous petitioner. It is well I have not taken a vow to accord every request. But there can be no danger in complying with this, sir. Utter it, Jane. But I wish that instead of a mere inquiry into, perhaps a secret, it was a wish for half my estate. Now, King Ahasuerus? What do I want with half your estate? Do you think I am a Jew usurper? Or usurer, seeking good investment in land? I would much rather have all your confidence. You will not exclude me from your confidence if you admit me to your heart. You are welcome to all of my confidence that is worth having, Jane. No. But for God's sake, don't desire a useless burden. Don't long for poison. Don't turn out a downright Eve on my hands. Why not, sir? You've just been telling me how much you like to be conquered and how pleasant over-persuasion is to you. Don't you think I'd better take advantage of the confession and begin and coax and entreat, even cry and be a little sulky if necessary, for the sake of a mere essay of my power? I dare you to any such experiment. Encroach, presume, and the game is up. Is it, sir? You soon give in. How stern you look now. Your eyebrows have become as thick as my finger, and your forehead resembles what, in some very astonishing poetry, I once saw styled a blue-piled thunderloft. That will be your married look, sir, I suppose? If that will be your married look, I, as a Christian, will soon give up the notion of consorting with a mere sprite or salamander. But what had you to ask, thing? Out with it. There, you are less civil now, and I like rudeness a great deal better than flattery. I had rather be a thing than an angel. This is what I have to ask. Why did you take such pains to make me believe you wished to marry Miss Ingram? Is that all? Thank God it is no worse. And now he unknit his black brows, looked down, smiling at me, and stroked my hair, as if well pleased at seeing a danger averted. I think I may confess, he continued, even though I should make you a little indignant, Jane, and I have seen what a fire spirit you can be when you are indignant. You glowed in the cool moonlight last night when you mutinied against fate and claimed your rank as my equal. Janet, by the by, it was you who made me the offer. Of course I did. But to the point, if you please, sir. Miss Ingram? Well, I feigned courtship of Miss Ingram because I wished to render you as madly in love with me as I was with you. And I knew jealousy would be the best ally I could call in for the furtherance of that end. Excellent! Now you are small, not one whit bigger than the end of my little finger. It was a burning shame and a scandalous disgrace to act in that way. Did you think nothing of Miss Ingram's feelings, sir? Her feelings are concentrated in one, pride, and that needs humbling. Were you jealous, Jane? Never mind, Mr. Rochester. It is in no way interesting to you to know that. Answer me truly once more. Do you think Miss Ingram will not suffer from your dishonest coquetry? Won't she feel forsaken and deserted? Impossible. When I told you how she, on the contrary, deserted me, the idea of my insolvency cooled, or rather extinguished, her flame in a moment. You have a curious designing mind, Mr. Rochester. I am afraid your principles on some points are eccentric. My principles were never trained, Jane. They may have grown a little awry for want of attention. Once again, seriously, may I enjoy the great good that has been vouchsafed to me without fearing that anyone else is suffering the bitter pain I myself felt a while ago? That you may, my good little girl. There is not another being in the world has the same pure love for me as yourself. For I lay that pleasant unction to my soul, Jane, a belief in your affection. I turned my lips to the hand that lay on my shoulder. I loved him very much, more than I could trust myself to say, more than words had power to express. Ask something more, he said presently. It is my delight to be entreated and to yield. I was again ready with my request. Communicate your intentions to Mrs. Fairfax, sir. She saw me with you last night in the hall, and she was shocked. Give her some explanation before I see her again. It pains me to be misjudged by so good a woman. Go to your room and put on your bonnet, he replied. I mean you to accompany me to Millcote this morning, and while you prepare for the ride, I will enlighten the old lady's understanding. Did she think, Janet, you had given the world for love and considered it well lost? I believe she thought I had forgotten my station, and you yours, sir. Station. Your station is in my heart and on the necks of those who would insult you, now or hereafter. Go. I was soon dressed, and when I heard Mr. Rochester quit Mrs. Fairfax's parlor, I hurried down to it. The old lady had been reading her morning portion of Scripture, the lesson for the day. Her Bible lay open before her, and her spectacles were upon it. Her occupation, suspended by Mr. Rochester's announcement, seemed now forgotten. Her eyes, fixed on the blank wall opposite, expressed the surprise of a quiet mind, stirred by unwonted tidings. Seeing me, she roused herself. She made a sort of effort to smile and framed a few words of congratulation, but the smile expired and the sentence was abandoned unfinished. She put up her spectacles, shut the Bible, and pushed her chair back from the table. I feel so astonished, she began. I hardly know what to say to you, Miss Eyre. I have surely not been dreaming, have I? Sometimes I have fall asleep when I'm sitting alone and fancy things that have never happened. It has seemed to me more than once when I have been in a doze that my dear husband, who died 15 years since, has come in and sat down beside me, and that I've even heard me call me by my name, Alice, as he used to do. Now, can you tell me whether it is actually true that Mr. Rochester has asked you to marry him? Don't laugh at me, but I really thought he came in here 5 minutes ago and said that in a month you would be his wife. He has said the same thing to me, I replied. He has. Do you believe him? Have you accepted him? Yes. She looked at me, bewildered. I could never have thought it. He is a proud man. All the Rochesters were proud, and his father at least liked money. He too has always been called careful. He means to marry you. He tells me so. She surveyed my whole person. In her eyes, I read that they had found no charm powerful enough to solve the enigma. It passes me, she continued, but no doubt it is true since you say so. How it will answer, I cannot tell. I really don't know. Equality of position and fortune is often advisable in such cases, and there are 20 years of difference in your ages. He might almost be your father. No, indeed, Mrs. Fairfax, exclaimed I, nettled. He is nothing like my father. No one who saw us together would suppose it for an instant. Mr. Rochester looks as young and is as young as some men at 25. Is it really for love he is going to marry you? She asked. I was so hurt by her coldness and skepticism that the tears rose to my eyes. I am sorry to grieve you, pursued the widow, but you are so young and so little acquainted with men. I wish to put you on your guard. It is an old saying that all is not gold that glitters, and in this case, I do fear there will be something found to be different to what either you or I expect. Why? Am I a monster? I said. Is it impossible that Mr. Rochester should have a sincere affection for me? No, you are very well and much improved of late, and Mr. Rochester, I dare say, is fond of you. I have always noticed that you were a sort of pet of his. There are times when, for your sake, I've been a little uneasy at his marked preference, and have wished to put you on your guard, but I did not like to suggest even the possibility of wrong. I knew such an idea would shock, perhaps offend you, and you were so discreet and so thoroughly modest and sensible, I hoped you would be trusted to protect yourself. Last night, I cannot tell you what I suffered when I sought all over the house and could find you nowhere, nor the master either, and then at 12 o'clock saw you come in with him. Well, never mind that now, I interrupted impatiently. It is enough that all was right. I hope all will be right in the end, she said. But believe me, you cannot be too careful. Try and keep Mr. Rochester at a distance. Distrust yourself as well as him. Gentlemen in his station are not accustomed to marry their governesses. I was growing truly irritated. Happily, Adele ran in. Let me go to Millcote too, she cried. Mr. Rochester won't, though there is so much room in the new carriage. Beg him to let me go, mademoiselle. That I will, Adele, and I hastened away with her, glad to quit my gloomy monitress. The carriage was ready. They were bringing it round to the front, and my master was pacing the pavement. Pilot followed him backward and forward.
Happy Halloween.
Adele may accompany us, may she not, sir? I told her no. I'll have no brats. I'll only have you. Do let her go, Mr. Rochester, if you please. It would be better. That makes perfect She will be a restraint.
What was just said.
He was quite peremptory, both in looks and voice. The chill of Mrs. Fairfax's warnings and the damp of her doubts were upon me. Something of unsubstantiality and uncertainty had beset my hopes. I half lost the sense of power over him. I was about mechanically to obey him without further remonstrance, but as he helped me into the carriage, he looked at my face. What is the matter? He asked. All the sunshine is gone. Do you really wish the bairn to go? Will it annoy you if she is left behind? I would far rather she went, sir. Then off for your bonnet, and back, like a flash of lightning, cried he to Adele. She obeyed him with what speed she might. After all, a single morning's interruption will not matter much, said he, when I mean shortly to claim you, your thoughts, conversation, and company for life. Adele, when lifted in, commenced kissing me by way of expressing her gratitude for my intercession. She was instantly stowed away into a corner on the other side of
Good
him.
morning, afternoon.
She then peeped round to where I sat. So stern a neighbor was too restrictive. To him, in his present fractious mood, she dared whisper no observations, nor ask of him any information. Let her come to me, I entreated. She will perhaps trouble you, sir. There is plenty of room on this side. He handed her over as if she had been a lapdog. I'll send her to school yet, he said. But now he was smiling. Adele heard him and asked if she was to go to school sans mademoiselle, without Miss Eyre. Yes, he replied, absolutely sans mademoiselle, for I am to take mademoiselle to the moon, and there I shall seek a cave in one of the white valleys along the volcano tops, and mademoiselle shall live with me there, and only me. She will have nothing to eat. You will starve her, observed Adele. I shall gather manna for her morning and night. The plains and hillsides of the moon are bleached with manna, Adele. She will want to warm herself. What will she do for a fire? Fire rises out of the lunar mountains. When she is cold, I'll carry her up to its peak and lay her down on the edge of a crater. Oh, qu'elle y sera mal, tout confortable. Oh, she'll be uncomfortable then. And her clothes, they will wear out. How could she get new ones? Mr. Rochester professed to be puzzled. Said he. What would you do, Adele? Cudgel your brains for an expedient. How would a white or a pink cloud answer for a gown, do you think? And one could cut a pretty enough scarf out of a rainbow. She is far better as she is, concluded Adele, after musing some time. Besides, she would get tired of living with only you and the moon. If I were mademoiselle, I would never consent to go with you. She has consented. She has pledged her word. But you can't get her there. There is no road to the moon. It is all air, and neither you nor she can fly.
Come back.
Adele, look in that field. We were now outside Thornfield Gates and bowling lightly along the smooth road to Millcote, where the dust was well laid by the thunderstorm and where the low hedges and lofty timber trees on each side glistened green and rain-refreshed. In that field, Adele, I was walking late one evening about a fortnight since, the evening of the day you helped me to make hay in the orchard meadows, and as I was tired with raking swaths, I sat down to rest me on a stile, and there I took out a little book and a pencil and began to write about a misfortune that befell me long ago, and a wish I had for happy days to come. I was riding away very fast, though daylight was fading from the leaf, when something came up the path and stopped 2 yards off me. I looked at it. It was a little thing with a veil of gossamer on its head. I beckoned it to come near me. It soon stood at my knee. I never spoke to it, and it never spoke to me in words, but I read its eyes, and it read mine, and our speechless colloquy was to this effect. It was a fairy, and come from Elfland, it said, and its errand was to make me happy. I must go with it out of the common world to a lonely place, such as the moon, for instance, and it nodded its head towards her horn, rising over Hay Hill. It told me of the alabaster cave and silver vale where we might live. I said I should like to go, but reminded it, as you did me, that I had no wings to fly. Oh, returned the fairy, that does not signify. Here is a talisman will remove all difficulties, and she held out a pretty gold ring. Put it, she said, on the fourth finger of the left hand, and I am yours, and you are mine, and we shall leave earth and make our own heaven yonder. She nodded again at the moon. The ring, Adele, is in my breeches pocket, under the disguise of a sovereign, which I mean soon to change it to a ring again. But what has Mademoiselle to do with it? I don't care for the fairy. You said it was Mademoiselle you would take to the moon. Mademoiselle is a fairy, he said, whispering mysteriously. Whereupon I told her not to mind his badinage, and she, on her part, evinced a fund of genuine French skepticism, denominating Mr. Rochester un vrai menteur, a real liar, and assuring him that she made no account whatever of his contes de fées, fairy tales, and that, du reste, il n'y avait pas de fées, et quand même il y en avait. Furthermore, there were no fairies, and even if there were some,
Bug you later.
she was sure they would never appear to him, nor ever give him rings, or offer to live with him in the moon.
Let's see.
The hour spent at Millcote was a somewhat harassing one to me. Mr. Rochester obliged me to go to a certain silk warehouse. There I was ordered to choose half a dozen dresses. I hated the business. I begged leave to defer it. No, it should be gone through with now. By dint of entreaties expressed in energetic whispers, I reduced the half dozen to 2. These, however, he vowed he would select himself. With anxiety, I watched his eye rove over the gay stores. He fixed on a rich satin of the most brilliant amethyst dye in a superb pink satin. I told him in a new series of whispers that he might as well buy me a gold gown and a silver bonnet at once. I should certainly never venture to wear his choice. With infinite difficulty, for he was stubborn as a stone, I persuaded him to make an exchange in favor of a sober black satin and pearl gray silk. It might pass for the present, he said, but he would yet see me glittering like a parterre. Glad was I to get him out of the silk warehouse and then out of the jeweler's shop. The more he bought me, the more my cheek burned with a sense of annoyance and degradation. As we re-entered the carriage and I sat back, feverish and fagged, I remembered what in the hurry of events, dark and bright, I had wholly forgotten. The letter of my uncle, John Eyre, to Mrs. Reed, his intention to adopt me and make me his testatrix. It would indeed be a relief, I thought, if I had ever so small an independency. I never can bear being dressed like a doll by Mr. Rochester, or sitting like a second Danae with the golden shower falling daily round me. I will write to Madeira the moment I get home and tell my Uncle John I am going to be married, and to whom. And if I had but a prospect of one day bringing Mr. Rochester an accession of fortune, I could better endure to be kept by him now. And somewhat relieved by this idea, which I failed not to execute that day, I ventured once more to meet, which I failed not to, and somewhat relieved by this idea, which I failed not to execute that day, I ventured once more to meet my master's and lover's eye, which most pertinaciously sought mine, though I averted both face and gaze. He smiled, and I thought his smile was such as a sultan might, in a blissful and fond moment, bestow on a slave his gold and gems had enriched. I crushed his hand, which was ever hunting mine, vigorously, and thrust it back to him, red with the passionate pressure. You need not look in that way, I said. If you do, I'll wear nothing but my old Lowood frocks to the end of the chapter. I'll be married in this lilac gingham. You may make a dressing gown for yourself out of the pearl gray silk, and an infinite series of waistcoats out of the black satin. He chuckled. He rubbed his hands. Oh, it is rich to see and hear her, he exclaimed. Is she original? Is she piquant? I would not exchange this one little English girl for the Grand Turk's whole seraglio, gazelle eyes, chloroforms, and all. The Eastern illusion bit me again. I'll not stand you an inch in the stead of a seraglio, I said, so don't consider me an equivalent for one. If you have a fancy for anything in that line, away with you, sir, to the bazaars of Stamboul without delay, and lay out in extensive slave purchases some of that spare cash you seem at a loss to spend satisfactorily here. And what will you do, Janet, while I am bargaining for so many tons of flesh and such an assortment of black eyes? I'll be preparing myself to go out as a missionary to preach liberty to them that are enslaved, your harem inmates among the rest. I'll get admitted there, and I'll stir up mutiny, and you, three-tailed bashaw as you are, sir, shall in a trice find yourself fettered among our hands. Nor will I for one consent to cut your bonds till you have signed a charter the most liberal that despot ever yet conferred. I would consent to be at your mercy, Jane. I would have no mercy, Mr. Rochester, if you supplicated for it with an eye like that. While you look so, I should be certain that whatever charter you might grant under coercion, your first act, when released, would be to violate its conditions. Why, Jane, what would you have? I fear you will compel me to go through a private marriage ceremony besides that performed at the altar. You will stipulate, I see, for peculiar terms. What will they be? I only want an easy mind, sir, not crushed by crowded obligations. Do you remember what you said of Celine Varenne, of the diamonds, the cashmeres you gave her? I will not be your English Celine Varenne. I shall continue to act as Adele's governess. By that, I shall earn my board and lodging and £30 a year beside. I'll furnish my own wardrobe out of that money, and you shall give me nothing but... Well, but what? Your regard, and if I give you mine in return, that debt will be quit. Well, For cool native impudence and pure innate pride, you haven't your equal, said he. We are now approaching Thornfield. Will it please you to dine with me today? He asked as we re-entered the gates. No, thank you, sir. And what for? No, thank you, if one may inquire. I have never dined with you, sir, and I see no reason why I should now, till what? You delight in half phrases. Till I can't help it. Do you suppose I eat like an ogre or a ghoul, that you dread being the companion of my repast? I have formed no suppositions on the subject, sir, but I want to go on as usual for another month. You will give up your governessing slavery at once. Indeed? Begging your pardon, sir, I shall not. I shall just go on with it as usual. I shall keep out of your way all day, as I have been accustomed to do. You may send for me in the evening when you feel disposed to see me, and I'll come then, but at no other time. I want a pinch of smoke, Jane. Or I want to smoke, Jane, or a pinch of snuff, to comfort me under all this. Pour me donner une contenance. Steady me, as Adele would say. And unfortunately, I have neither my cigar case nor my snuff box. But listen, whisper. It is your time now, little tyrant, but it will be mine presently. And when once I have fairly seized you, to have and to hold, I'll just, figuratively speaking, attach you to a chain like this, touching his watch guard. Yes, bonny wee thing, I'll wear you in my bosom, lest my jewel I should tine. He said this as he helped me to alight from the carriage, and while he afterward lifted out Adele, I entered the house and made good my retreat upstairs. He duly summoned me to his presence in the evening. I had prepared an occupation for him, for I was determined not to spend the whole time in a tete-a-tete conversation. I remembered his fine voice. I knew he liked to sing. Good singers generally do. I was no vocalist myself, and in his fastidious judgment, no musician either. But I delighted in listening when the performance was good. No sooner had twilight, that hour of romance, begun to lower her blue and starry banner over the lattice, than I rose, opened the piano, and entreated him for the love of heaven to give me a song. He said I was a capricious witch, and that he would rather sing another time, but I averred that no time was like the present. Did I like his voice? He asked. Very much. I was not fond of pampering that susceptible vanity of his, but for once, and from motives of expediency, I would even soothe and stimulate it. Then, Jane, you must play the accompaniment. Very well, sir. I will try. I did try, but was presently swept off the stool and denominated a little bungler. Being pushed unceremoniously to one side, which was precisely what I wished, he usurped my place and proceeded to accompany himself, for he could play as well as sing. I hied me to the window recess, and while I sat there and looked out on the still trees and dim lawn, to a sweet air was sung in mellow tones the following strain. The truest love that ever heart felt at its kindled core did through each vein and quicken start the tide of being pour. Her coming was my hope each day, her parting was my pain. The chance that did her steps delay was ice in every vein. I dreamed it would be nameless bliss as I loved to be, and to this object did I press as blind as eagerly. But wide as pathless was the space that lay our lives between, and dangerous as the foamy race of ocean surges green, and haunted as a robber path through wildness or wilderness or wood, for might and right and woe and wrath between our spirits stood. I dangers dared, I hindrance scorned, I omens did defy, whatever menaced, harassed, warned, I passed impetuous by. On sped my rainbow, fast as light, I flew as in a dream, for far glorious rose upon my sight that child of shower and gleam. Still bright on clouds of suffering dim shines that soft solemn joy, nor care I now how dense and grim disasters gather nigh. I care not in this moment sweet, though all I have ashore should come on pinion strong and fleet, proclaiming vengeance sore. Though haughty hate should strike me down, right far approach to me, and grinding might with furious frown swear endless enmity. My love has placed her little hand with noble faith in mine, and vowed that wedlock's sacred hand our natures shall entwine. My love is sworn with sealing kiss, with me to live, to die. I have at last my nameless bliss, as I love, loved am I. He rose and came toward me, and I saw his face all kindled, his full falcon eye flashing, and tenderness and passion in every lineament. I quailed momentarily, then I rallied. Soft seeing, daring demonstration I would not have, and I stood in peril of both. A weapon of deference must be prepared. I wetted my tongue. As he reached me, I asked with asperity whom he was going to marry now. That was a strange question to be put by his darling Jane. Indeed, I considered it a very natural and necessary one. He had talked of his future wife dying with him. What did he mean by such a pagan idea? I had no intention of dying with him. He might depend on that. Oh, all he longed, all he prayed for was that I might live with him. Death was not for such as I. Indeed it was. I had as good a right to die when my time came as he had, but I should bide that time and not be hurried away in a suttee. Would I forgive him for the selfish idea and prove my pardon by a reconciling kiss? No, I would rather be excused. Here I heard myself apostrophed as a hard little thing, and it was added, any other woman would have melted to marrow at hearing such stanzas crooned in her praise. I assured him I was naturally hard, very flinty, and that he would often find me so, and that moreover I was determined to show him divers rugged points in my character before the ensuing 4 weeks elapsed. He should know fully what sort of a bargain he had made, while there was yet time to rescind it. Would I be quiet and talk rationally? I would be quiet if he liked, and as to talking rationally, I flattered myself that I was doing that now. He fretted, pished, and pshawed. Very good, I thought. You may fume and fidget as you please, but this is the best plan to pursue with you, I am certain. I like you more than I can say, but I'll not sink into a bathos of sentiment, and with this needle of repartee, I'll keep you from the edge of the gulf too, and moreover, maintain by its pungent aid that distance between you and myself most conducive to our real mutual advantage. From less to more, I worked him up to considerable irritation. Then, after he had retired in dudgeon, quite to the other end of the room, I got up, and saying, I wish you good night, sir, in my natural and wonted respected manner, I slipped out by the side door and got away. The system thus entered on, I pursued during the whole season of probation, and with the best success. He was kept, to be sure, rather cross and crusty, but on the whole, I could see he was excellently entertained, and that a lamb-like submission and turtle-dove sensibility, while fostering his despotism more, would have pleased his judgment, satisfied his common sense, and even suited his taste less. In other people's presence I was, as formerly, deferential and quiet, any other line of conduct being uncalled for. It was only in the evening conferences I thus thwarted and afflicted him. He continued to send for me punctually the moment the clock struck 7, even when I appeared before him. Though when I appeared before him now, he had no such honeyed terms as love and darling on his lips. The best words at my service were provoking puppet, malicious elf, sprite, changeling, etc. For caresses, too, I now got grimaces. For the pressure of a hand, a pinch on the arm. For the kiss on the cheek, a severe tweak of the ear. It was all right. At present, I decidedly preferred these fierce favors to anything more tender. Mrs. Fairfax, I saw, approved me. Her anxiety on my account vanished. Therefore, I was certain I did well. Meanwhile, Mr. Rochester affirmed I was wearing him to skin and bone, and threatened awful vengeance for my present conduct at some period fast coming. I laughed in my sleeve at his menaces. I can keep you in reasonable check now, I reflected, and I don't doubt to be able to do it hereafter. If one expedient loses its virtue, another must be devised. Yet, after all, my task was not an easy one. Often I would rather have pleased than teased him. My future husband was becoming to me my whole world, and more than the world, almost my hope of heaven. He stood between me and every thought of religion, as an eclipse intervenes between man and the broad sun. I could not in those days see God for his creature, of whom I had made an idol. And that concludes chapter 24 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Thank you again for joining me. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as I finish off the champagne of teas. I hope you have a great rest of your day. That really is good. And I hope I see you again later on. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Christina Wainwright.
Oh, that was what happened? Well, that was a fun one. Thanks so much for swinging by. We begin by simply listening. Slow down, see just how peaceful today can be. I've been your host, Sebastian St. Spalls. You're killing me, Spalls. Vincent twice, Vincent twice. You can always call me Bennett. That was a fun one. Thank you so much for swinging by. Catch you guys on the flip side.
This one is so pretty. It's a Earl Grey de la Creme, loose leaf black tea blend, and let's see, it says from Trader Joe's, and it says it is made with black tea, natural flavors. Again, who knows what that means? Natural bergamot flavor, dried sunflower, dried cornflower, and vanilla beans. So yeah, when I poured it out, the loose leaves, the sunflower and the cornflower, just like these beautiful light yellow and purple beans mixed into the tea. It's gorgeous. Okay, so I've been letting it steam. Let's go ahead and pour this out. Gorgeous. They're these beautiful, I think they're, to me, are they woodcut engravings or were they etchings? One of the two, but they are beautiful, beautiful black and white drawings illustrating the book. And so if you want to go ahead and check those out on the Tea with Jane Eyre group, they're gorgeous drawings. Sorry, they got engaged. And then in yesterday,